Would you say that's the most profound difference between men and women, upper body strength, or do you think that violence is equally or more extreme?
That's a really good question, and I should know that, but I don't. Yeah, upper body strength, they're barely overlapping. I think hand grip strength, they're barely overlapping. And then, yeah, violence is also huge. Those are probably the three biggest. I mean, the other things like men's interest in things and women interest in people, but those are probably more similar than upper body strength. I mean, running speed obviously is also a huge difference. Yeah, I'm not sure what is the biggest one of all.
Go through some of the other ones, particularly in terms of psychological differences that maybe are less pronounced and maybe are less well known.
Women are a little bit more agreeable and conscientious than men, which is one explanation people have provided for why women are dominating in education. They outperform men in pretty much all subjects in school. Um, so when it comes to psychological differences, I will say they tend not to be that huge. Some of them are pretty big, but a lot of them are fairly small. Um, but as we were saying, when you change group averages, then that's when you really see things. Men are more interested in, they have slightly better um, mental rotation abilities. Women are slightly more verbally tilted. So this is why, we kind of have a stereotype that men are more into like math and science. That tends to be their comparative advantage, whereas women are more verbally tilted. So they're better at things like writing compared to some STEM disciplines. Um, then there are some of the obvious ones, like for example, men are more interested in making more money. They take more risks in their careers. Women are more interested in working less and spending more time with their families. They care more about the children. I think you can kind of see women are just more sort of attuned to the needs of their children and to other vulnerable people, and animals, I suppose too. I think men are maybe a slightly more open to ideas. But I think that's a very small difference. So, I mean, when you look at a lot of things, men and women are really similar and they actually do have the same general priorities. It's just how do they weigh priorities when they come into conflict? And so women will be a little bit more risk averse and men will be a little bit more willing to approach risky things. So, yeah, again, like on an individual level, we're not going to see these that clearly. Like there are tons of women who have more masculine personalities and plenty of men who have more feminine personalities. But on whole, you see these differences, and that's why really when you're looking at the differences between men and women, you want to look like in a large group of people. And so when you change demographics of an institution, that's really when you're going to see those differences uh, become more noticeable.
Am I right as well that men tend to have more variation in psychological traits and also in physical traits? So, like on intelligence, for instance, men might be that the male mean is maybe slightly higher than the female mean, but not much. But the male variation is greater. So, you have more men who are intellectually disabled and you have more men who are like genius IQ. Is that right?
Yeah. So the greater male variability hypothesis, I think, is thought to apply to quite a few different domains. One of them is intelligence, where you have among people who would be geniuses, and as you get higher, the discrepancy would be higher. So top 2%, top 1%, top 0.1% of intelligence, men are going to be overrepresented. And so that's why, well, I don't want to say that's why plenty of people will disagree with this, but like when you look at people who are winning Nobel prizes or people who are going to be, the greatest writer of all time, or the greatest anything of all time, those are often going to be more likely to be men than women, even if it's in an area that tends to be more feminine. But you also have men at the bottom of the distribution in a lot of different things, and a lot of the people doing the worst off in society are men. With the intelligence, this is one that I think is kind of a still ongoing thing where it does seem to be the greater male variability of more men at the top and more men at the bottom. But some people are arguing that there is still a small average differences where men are maybe like around 3 IQ points higher than women. I don't know if that will ultimately be borne out, but it is potential that there's a small difference there as well. However, a lot of that seems to be offset by other female characteristics, like the fact that they're more conscientious and they work a lot harder in school. They make better employees at a lot of things, precisely because they're more conscientious. So you can rely on them more than you can rely on men a lot of the time. Um, and so even if men do have a slight intellectual advantage, it does seem to be the case that women are better at education, at least as it's currently set up. And they outperform men. I think men still do a little bit better on the quant portion of the SAT, GRE. I'm not sure about the verbal, but yeah, women are really schooling men in in school, or girls, I suppose, are schooling men, boys.
It is an interesting discovery, isn't it? That actually, when, um, well, and one I think that kind of proves the fact that actually the differences now that we're seeing between men and women in terms of choice of profession and where they excel and so on are mostly, even overwhelmingly, down to innate differences, because we basically removed the lid on what women were allowed to access, and we had this enormous influx of women into higher education in general, into medicine, into, all sorts of places they'd previously been excluded from. We just didn't get this influx of women into other areas of STEM and so on. Um, which is like, maybe that's because those places are still clinging on to these more hidden restrictions. But I think it's more likely it's just the women aren't as interested. Like, women are interested in medicine because it's a
Yeah,
caring profession that also obviously
right.
ha- demands good scientific skills. They're just not as interested in physics, and that's fine. Like, let people enjoy things.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is the people things difference. Yeah, they're really interested in helping people. So yeah, they'll go into biology and become doctors, but they're not going to do particle physics. They also don't even really like philosophy that much. Maybe that's because it's the subject of study is sort of ideas rather than people. But psychologists are like 80% women now. So it's not that women don't necessarily have quant skills or aren't good at science. They do approach a lot of sciences that are within the realm of what they would be interested in. I'm not convinced that there's much, if any, discrimination really happening against women in these STEM disciplines. And in fact, it's really a lot of the opposite. There are so many programs that are designed to try to bring women into all of the disciplines that they're underrepresented, and women are being greatly rewarded if they want to go into physics or philosophy or any area where women are vastly underrepresented, because people care so much about women being represented. So anywhere a woman goes, if she goes somewhere where women are underrepresented, she's going to get all kinds of benefits and get award. Like I have done some work in the experimental philosophy community, and I feel like I have been received in that world way better than I would be for my contributions, just because there aren't many women. Um, Same goes for like in the academic freedom space. Like, men are more interested in it; they are more likely to belong to these societies and these groups that promote academic freedom. So if you're a woman and you're interested in that, then you can, hit above your level in those domains. So
I've
I
had the same
personally think it's
experience
much
in
more likely.
Yeah, I've had
Yeah,
the same experience
I'm
in
sure
in
you have. Yeah,
in journalism and other places. Yeah, people are so nice to you. Like as long as they don't, like, sexually harass you, they'll be so nice to you. So,
right.
wasn't I sometimes sexual anyway, that's a complicated distinction, but then I also have found that being a mother is a massive disadvantage professionally in a way that being a
Mm,
father is not. So I kind of think that it evens
right.
out. If you're a woman who has children, then
It's
yes,
true.
you'll get positive discrimination, and you'll also get this, like, various enormous practical impediments. Um, if you're a
Yeah,
woman who's
it's
not a mother,
a
you
lot of
probably
time
get
to be a
the best of
mother.
both worlds. Yeah.